Are you ready to take your striking game to the next level? Then you've got to get the focus ball. Dramatically improve footwork, timing, reflex, hand-eye coordination, head movement, and striking IQ. Lightweight and extremely portable, so you can train every time, everywhere with the focus ball.
Hi, it's Minnie. You're watching Don Shea Boxing Nation.
I take all comers. I don't duck any man.
Can we assume that Michael Dokes is one of the prospects?
All comers. Come one, come all, because nobody can get close to me. They're not even close. I'm the best fighter in the world.
Alright guys, now before this video starts, I have to give you the heads up. This video was supposed to be another edition of DB in Pose, where I was going to have you guys actually vote and pick who you want to see Canelo Alvarez fight next. I was going to have the options laid out on the screen. I just found out after I did the video that YouTube no longer has the option to do polls on your video. At least that's what I was told. So if any of you guys know more about it and you know a way to do it, let me know in the comment section. So anyway, just disregard when I'm telling you to click on the screen and vote on the fighter you want Canelo to fight. Just put it in the comment section. Let's get into it. Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Man, oh man, oh man. So first, Jamal Charlo, he snatches Canelo Alvarez's opponent, Sergey Derevyanchenko, a fighter that Canelo was really looking at facing next. So after Charlo snatches Canelo Alvarez's opponent, then Mike Tyson, he snatches Canelo Alvarez's date to fight, September 12th. And just when Canelo thought the news couldn't get worse, on top of all of that, DAZN is telling him he has to take a pay cut for his next fight, which according to sources, Canelo Alvarez is not happy about that at all. So right now, it's all bad for Canelo Alvarez. The question is, where does he go from here? I want to ask you guys a question starting this video off. Who do you think he should fight next? Who do you want to see Canelo Alvarez fight next? We're going to do another episode of DB in Pose, where you guys can go ahead and click on the icon on the upper right corner and you can choose who you want to see Canelo Alvarez fight next. Now, and of course, Canelo Alvarez, he has a lot of options from the weakest to the strongest links. So what I've decided to do is put together a list of the best opponents available for Canelo Alvarez right now. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade is the undefeated WBO middleweight champion. Demetrius Andrade has been chasing Canelo Alvarez for 5 years. Canelo is now 30. Demetrius has been chasing Canelo since he was 25 years old. When Canelo was fighting at 154, did not have a belt. The WBO champion at 154 was who? Demetrius Andrade. It's rare that the champion is actually calling out the challenger, but that's how it was in 2015. Demetrius Andrade, he literally called Canelo Alvarez a bitch in an interview, and Canelo Alvarez didn't even respond. But when an old Juan Manuel Marquez, who's obviously way smaller and way older than Canelo, when he criticized Canelo Alvarez for his selection of opponents, that enraged Canelo so much that Canelo, he responded to him and challenged him to a fight. But he lets Andrade call him a bitch and turns down a shot at Andrade's title. So soon as Demetrius Andrade's title gets stripped, they stripped him of his belt and they end up giving the belt to Liam Smith. Once Liam Smith had that same belt, then all of a sudden Canelo, he goes after the belt. Like I said, this was back in 2015, 5 years ago at 154. Fast forward to present day, Demetrius Andrade is the champion at 160 and he's still chasing Canelo Alvarez. I tell you guys all the time, boxing is solely based on race, nationality, and pride. If you don't believe me, read the comments on anybody's videos, from mine to anyone's videos, and that's what you will see in the comment section. And this is the reason why Canelo Alvarez would do huge numbers if he were to get in the ring with a Demetrius Andrade or a Jamal Charlo, because race sells, as Don King would always say. When Larry Holmes was fighting all these black fighters, it was just another day at the office for Larry. But all of a sudden, soon as he fought against Jerry Cooney, it became like the biggest event in boxing because race sells. And you know, guys, I have to say I stand corrected and give credit when it's due, because there was someone in my comment section that corrected something I said and they were right. I said in one of my Canelo Alvarez videos that the biggest rivalry in boxing is black versus brown, USA versus Mexico. And someone in my comment section said, no, the biggest rivalry is black versus anyone that's not black. And he was absolutely right. We've seen it with Wilder versus Fury, with Ward versus Kovalev, with Floyd Mayweather versus damn near everybody. So there is no doubt in my mind, if Canelo Alvarez versus James Kirkland can do huge numbers, which it did on HBO, imagine the numbers that Canelo versus Charlo or Demetrius Andrade would do. I mean, be honest with yourself. What fight would do bigger numbers? Canelo versus Kovalev, Canelo versus Rocky Fielding, Canelo versus Liam Smith, hell, Canelo versus Caleb Smith, or Canelo versus Andrade or Jamal Charlo? It's a rhetorical question. We already know the answer, because even though Caleb Smith is known in the UK, he's not really that known in the United States. So let's move on with opponents for Canelo Alvarez. Then you have Dimitri Bivol. Bivol is a light heavyweight champion. Now remember, Canelo Alvarez, he fought Kovalev. He fought Sergey Kovalev at light heavyweight. So someone who hasn't been following Canelo's career closely might even ask the question, well, gee, if he fought Sergey Kovalev at light heavyweight, why wouldn't he fight Bivol? Well, there's a couple differences. You see, Sergey Kovalev was closer towards the end of his career and had already been knocked out twice, while as Bivol is undefeated and he's considered top 2, the best light heavyweight in the world. So that would definitely be a good look for Canelo if he chose Bivol as an opponent. But knowing Canelo Alvarez's reputation, he's not known for going after an undefeated champion who's considered the top 2 best in the world in that division. Don't get me wrong, Canelo has done it before, but he does it like every 3 years. Case in point, the last time Canelo was in the ring with an undefeated champion that was considered number 1 or number 2 in the division is when he fought against Gennady Golovkin. And we've seen how that fight played out. So moving on, the next opponent on my list is Caleb Smith. Now, Caleb Smith is probably the weakest link on this list, but if we were to compare him to a Jason Quigley, then that makes Caleb Smith a great opponent for Canelo Alvarez. But the reason why he's the weakest link on this list is because of how he looked in his last performance against Jason Ryder, a guy who came into the ring with 4 losses and almost beat Caleb Smith. Caleb Smith, he showed that he has a problem fighting on the inside. He looks very uncomfortable when guys close the distance and goes to his body. All he does is block. And that's something that would seem to be tailor-made for Canelo Alvarez, which is the reason why a lot of people believe that Canelo will probably end up facing Caleb Smith next. But there's also talks that he might shock the world and fight Jason Quigley. So we got to see. You never know with Canelo Alvarez. Moving on. Then you have arguably the best super middleweight in the world, which is David Benavidez. Now look, if we broke this down the proper way, when it comes to the middleweight division, outside of Canelo, who are the best middleweights in the division? Obviously, it's the 2 undefeated champions. The WBC champion Jamal Charlo, who actually took Canelo's belt because Canelo vacated it and basically handed it over to Jamal Charlo. So you have him as a champion, and then you have the undefeated Demetrius Andrade, who's a champion. So the 2 best middleweights in the world is Andrade and Jamal Charlo. When it comes to super middleweight, the 2 best super middleweights are David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. Now, credit to Canelo, he did reach out. His people, they did reach out to Caleb Plant and try to make that fight, and it was Caleb Plant that surprisingly turned the fight down, said he wasn't ready to get in the ring with Canelo Alvarez in May. So the question is, if Canelo Alvarez was willing to fight Caleb Plant, why wouldn't he get in the ring with a David Benavidez? Hell, if that's the case, why wouldn't he get in the ring with an Andrade or a Charlo? But he'll get in the ring with a Caleb Plant. He'll consider getting in the ring with a Sergey Derevyanchenko. He'll consider getting in the ring with a John Ryder, a Jason Quigley, or a Caleb Smith, but not a Charlo, an Andrade, or a David Benavidez. I mean, Jamal Charlo, the man that Canelo vacated his belt and handed to, Jamal Charlo, he said that he wants to move up to 168 and he wants to fight David Benavidez. So if Jamal Charlo is willing to do it, why isn't Canelo willing to do it? And Canelo fans, I got some more rhetorical questions for you. When it comes to Charlo and Andrade, you guys say, well, who did Charlo and Andrade fight? They don't deserve to fight against Canelo Alvarez. For you fans to say that, my question to you is, how come, if you feel this way, how come you never said these things about David Benavidez? How come you never said these things about Caleb Plant? How come you never said these things about Rocky Fielding? I mean, if you read the comments, they talk about Jamal Charlo and Demetrius Andrade like they're the #1 guys on the coincidental list. But speaking of the coincidental list, this just goes to show you it's not a coincidence that the only people that they talk bad about, say it's overhyped, bums, etc., don't deserve to fight Canelo are fighters on the coincidental list. That's why it's called the coincidental list, guys. When Canelo announced that he was fighting against Rocky Fielding, there was not one negative comment about Rocky Fielding in the comment section. Not one thing that they've said about Charlo or Andrade was said about Rocky Fielding. And we obviously know why, don't. Speaking of Jamal Charlo, let's get into it. The last person on this list, Jamal Charlo. This is the man that was Canelo's mandatory for damn near 2 years. The WBC kept promising that Charlo would get his shot at the title, just like they kept promising he would get his shot at the title when Golovkin had that belt. Golovkin avoided Charlo for like 2 years, right? And after them constantly telling Charlo this, all of a sudden Canelo, he gives the belt up, hands it over to Jamal Charlo, another fighter that Canelo has been avoiding since 2015. Because when Andrade was calling Canelo Alvarez a bitch at 154, he wasn't the only champion at the time. Jamal Charlo and his brother Jamal Charlo were both champions at 154, while Canelo Alvarez was beltless. And all of the champions were calling out Canelo Alvarez. But the only champion he decided to fight was Liam Smith. But he did fight Edeslani Lara as well. And I think the Lara fight is one of the main reasons Canelo decided not to get in the ring with the Jamal Charlo or an Andrade, because Canelo did not want to deal with the athleticism. So tell me who you want to see Canelo Alvarez fight. And I have a bonus question. I also want to know, who do you think Canelo Alvarez's next 3 opponents should be? Go ahead and put that in the comment section. Because once again, if some of you Canelo fans are trying to say that this fighter or that fighter is a bum, doesn't deserve to fight Canelo, you're raising the bar even higher for Canelo. You're saying he should really be fighting some top-notch elite fighters. So go ahead and tell us who you want to see Canelo Alvarez fight in his next 3 outings. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. You know, I always say on this channel, pay-per-view fights should actually be free. And now the day has come where I'm about to hook you up with an app where you can watch all your pay-per-view events, boxing, UFC, etc. for free. I want to introduce Block TV, the best internet streaming television app out there. They provide over 3,600 channels, including HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Starz. They have a massive video-on-demand library with over 40,000 of the new release movies and the latest TV series. And it also includes DVR, so you're getting all of this for $34.99 a month, and once again, that includes free pay-per-view. So this one right here is a no-brainer, guys, because back in Las Vegas, I was paying damn near $200 a month for my cable. Those days are long gone now. So to get the app, make sure you guys go over to getblocktv.com and put in my promo code and get 30% off your first month. You also get a free month for every friend you refer. The promo code is DBNation.